2 years ago, I signed up for my first ultramarathon, not knowing at all what I was about to get myself into. Since then, I've become obsessed with the sport. I've done 6 50Ks, one 50-miler, a road marathon, and more than a few training runs that you could call ultramarathons. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I also had a lot of triumphs. I found myself on the podium at multiple races that I've done. I've seen firsthand the love that this community has, not just for other runners, but for the trails. Through my journey in the sport, I've picked up a lot of things I wish that I knew when I started, but had to learn the hard way. In this video, I want to break those down, so I'll be going through the top 7 things I wish I knew before I ever entered an ultramarathon. Most races have aid stations along the course, and if you're not familiar with what that is, it's essentially a table that's set up with snacks, water, electrolytes, and gels that you can use to refuel yourself throughout the race. It should be published ahead of time exactly where these are and what the spacing between them is. I went into my first ultramarathon thinking you were soft if you stopped here, which was a really dumb thought because they're really beneficial. And it's great to not have to carry your entire water supply and all of the calories you plan on consuming the entire race. You should come up with a plan for how much time you anticipate it taking you to get from aid station to aid station and decide which ones you're going to stop at, if not all of them. In some cases, they might be 2 to 3 miles apart the entire race. That would be a really optimal setup, but if that's the case, you probably don't need to stop at every single aid station. Maybe you stop at every other one and fill up your water bottles, or you stop at every third one and pick up a gel to take. In other races, they might be 10 to 15 miles apart. It depends on the level of support that the race is providing. If you have 15 miles between aid stations, then you're going to want to pick up enough water to get you to the next aid station, as well as any other calories that you may be consuming. As you get into the ultramarathon distances, consuming calories during the race becomes essential. And a lot of people will make a plan before the race, which I highly recommend. But sometimes that plan doesn't always happen. Maybe your stomach gets upset. Maybe you were planning on eating 100 grams of carbs an hour, and all of a sudden you're 2 hours in and you only been hitting 30 grams of carbs an hour. That's better than nothing. If you're not hitting your goal, it's okay, try to recover it if you can. But if not, it's better than not consuming anything at all. If you can only get down scratch hydration or some kind of electrolyte drink with a little bit of sugar in it, that's better than just straight water. And if something is gonna make you throw up, don't take it. If you can't handle anything at all, I would suggest just going with water until your stomach settles, because the minute you throw up, you lose everything. Now you've got negative calories since the start of the race. This is something I'm still working on in my own running. I've thrown up in races before. It's not fun, but if you can do anything to prevent it, I would highly recommend that. My first 50K started out at a ski resort and basically ran up and down the ski slope on some pretty technical trails, and then we followed a single track route all the way down to the finish line. I was not ready for that terrain. I fell 3 times. I had been doing my long runs out on this rolling dirt road that was at elevation, and I thought that was going to be adequate to get me through my first 50K. Turns out I would have been much better off practicing on similar terrain to what I'd be racing on. Sometimes you may not have access to the exact type of terrain you're going to be racing on. And that's okay, just do your best to mimic what you can face. And if you do have access to it, you should be taking advantage of it. Coming from more of a track and cross-country background, I was so scared of losing any time during my first couple ultramarathons. I was terrified of a shoe coming untied, a gel dropping, anything that would have slowed me down. Since then, I've come to realize that these little things, they happen. I've gotten rocks in my shoes during races, and you need to stop and take care of that, because if you let something fester the entire race, it's going to get a lot worse. I recently should have listened to this advice in the last 50K I did, because I was starting to get a really bad blister around mile 10, and I was unwilling to just stop and relace my shoes so that my foot wasn't sliding around as much. This goes for blister and chafing prevention, and really anything else that seems like a minor problem during the race. As you get out 4, 5, 6 hours running, that little pain that you should have stretched out or that tight spot on your shoe is going to become so much worse than you anticipated. So take care of it when it happens. It's okay to lose a minute or two to stretch something out or relace your shoe or put on chafe cream. Do what you need to do to make sure you don't have these little problems that will eventually become big problems as you run for this long. You may go out for a 5 to 10 mile easy run during the week that feels incredibly chill, but that pace on race day might feel incredibly difficult at mile 26. So err on the side of caution with pacing. It's okay to start a little slower than you think you should, and I'd highly recommend that at your first one. I, at my first race, decided that I wanted to try to win. The winning prize was a trip to Argentina, and for some reason, I thought maybe I had a shot at that. So for the first 3 miles, I bombed down these ski slopes with some pretty elite runners and got dropped really hard. It ended up being okay, and I suffered in the later miles, but that was something I had to learn the hard way. If you can be smarter about it than I was, you definitely should. To help mitigate the risk of something going wrong with nutrition on race day, you should be practicing it during training. If you can, figure out what they're going to have at the aid stations, and if you plan on taking that during the race, you should be training with it. You don't want to discover on race day that your stomach can't handle whatever gel they're serving or whatever electrolyte drink mix is at the aid stations. So buy it ahead of time and use it in training. You should also come up with a plan of how many calories you plan on consuming per hour during the race, and try to match that during your long runs. One good starting point would be 30 to 40 grams of carbs an hour. And there are probably people out there that would say, oh, it's actually optimal to be consuming 100 grams of carbs an hour. And while that's true, most people cannot just handle taking in 100 grams of carbs an hour without conditioning themselves to get to that point. So I would start with 30 to 40 grams of carbs an hour. That's 1 to 2 goo gels. If you can hit that in training consistently, then start bumping it up and trying to get to that 80 to 100 grams of carbs an hour threshold. But I would start off there and make sure that you can handle that before you really start piling it on. And in order to adequately consume those calories, you also need to be hydrating well enough. Hydration is king. That's the #1 priority. You should be coming up with a hydration plan and knowing roughly how much water and electrolytes you plan on taking the entire race. Things are going to go wrong. That's just a fact with ultramarathoning. You might not hit your calorie per hour goal. Maybe you throw up. Maybe you spill a water bottle or you trip on a root. That kind of stuff happens and it's okay. What matters is that you keep going when that does happen and find a way to deal with it. If you fall, get up, dust yourself off, make sure you're not hurt, and just keep moving. I could talk all day about what you should and shouldn't do going into a race, but some things you're just gonna have to experience firsthand. Somebody before my first race could have told me that I need to go out slow and I need to pace myself, and I still would have sent it with those fast guys from the go because I hadn't experienced that level of pain yet. And I think just about anybody would agree, every race you're going to pick up 1 or 2 things that you take with you for the rest of your career. It's important that you're always learning and always looking for ways to improve, and a lot of things you're just going to have to learn by doing. It's great that you watch this video because that shows you obviously want to try to do the best you can and pick up any tips possible before going into your first race. But just know that things probably won't go perfect, and that's okay. What matters is that you get to the start line healthy and ready to go, and you're able to face the challenges ahead with a positive attitude and get to the finish line healthy. Bonus advice, this sport is pretty addicting. Whether or not that's a good thing to you or not, it's up for you to decide. But there's something really special about seeing improvement, and from race to race, looking at things and saying, wow, I handled that situation so much better than the last time it happened to me. Or being able to meet your nutrition goal, run at a faster pace, all that stuff is very satisfying. Seeing improvement is what makes this sport fun. Enjoy the process, have fun out there, and good luck at your first ultramarathon.